So, what I want to do here is explain a simple kind of 6-point method for the close reading that you will need to do in the commentary section in a way that builds on many of the things that we've looked at throughout the year for paper one. But hopefully, this will put it into a very clear correlation between reading methodology and then the commentary structure that you might end up using to actually write your paper. So the first thing you want to do, explore the connotations of the title. Now, don't overthink this. This is a place where you can let your brain wander a little bit, run it a little wild in your annotations with everything that you are reminded of by the phrase of the title, the individual words in the title. Think both sides of the coin always. If you've got a phrase that seems positive, try and think of the negative connotations, because chances are every single poem is going to draw out that central ambiguity, and it will come back, it will feature very heavily in your ability to understand what's going on, and it will give you at least an introductory paragraph. Then you want to move on to examine the poem for at least 3 distinctive moments. Now, this is the process that we were looking at after the mock exam. This is something that I felt that you needed to do a little more. And you'll find very frequently that poems don't fit neatly into that 3-part structure of an opening, a central climax, and a conclusion. But I would say almost every single poem does have those 3 moments. What you will find when you're trying to look for these distinctive moments is that you will probably find more of them using the method that I have shown you how to do, when you just simply track every single change in either the speaking voice, the subject matter, the time, or the place. And by tracking those changes, you then define in literal narrative terms what's going on in the section that comes before and then the section that comes after. So you end up with these sort of discrete episodes that structure the poem, and they give you an insight very clearly as well into the structure, which will be, a dedicated section of your commentary. Then what you want to do is explore the opening 2 or 3 lines in detail and try and infer the poet's intentions from these lines, and understand that your understanding of their intentions from the opening 2 or 3 lines is going to be provisional. But doing that at this point, trying to work out what you think the poet is trying to say or trying to argue or trying to convince you of at that moment will give you a better understanding later, even if you have to come back and revise it, which you certainly will. Then you want to locate the central climax of the poem, which will be easy to do if you've carried out step 2 very clearly and in a sort of methodical manner. The central climax of the poem, or its central image, and really here you're looking for its kind of most densely figurative moment. And that's where you really want to be really raking the poem over for imagery, style, figurative language, sound devices, features of the rhythm and the metrics, important aspects of the form, everything that you can think of in that central image. Obviously, you want to be doing this in the opening section as well, but part of that analysis of style is what's going to allow you in the opening to understand the poet's intentions. Here, you should already have some developing understanding of what they might be, and you're looking here at how this is developing a sense of climax in the poem. Then, examine the form and structure of the poem. And you will have probably been doing this in sections 3 and 4 as you go through. But think also about, the form is the finished article. If you think of an analogy, the form is, say, the house itself. The structure are all of the components that build the house itself. And so here you're thinking of the overall form that the poem is written in. What genre of poem does it occupy? What features of the structure go about creating that particular form? This is always the section that students find the most difficult to write about, but it's an important one. You will find this a lot easier if you carry out step 2 very, very methodically, because you will be given a sequence of events that will show you actually the kind of the logical plot behind the poem, and then why distinctive features, say, of the line length or the rhythm are going on at particular moments. Then finally, you want to examine the conclusion of the poem, specifically for the shift in the poet's intentions. You will always get a change in the poet's perspective in the final section. And if you don't, it will be for a very deliberate reason, because it will be representing, say, a static mind or a static vision of reality, which is very unusual in a poem, because most of the time their purpose is to shift the way that we see the world. So examine the conclusion, again, for imagery, style, figurative language, structure, form, rhythm, all of those things that you know to look for, but specifically how it contributes to a shift in the poet's intentions. So what you get left with then in the reading is examining the title, defining distinctive moments, at least 3, examining the opening very carefully, examining the climactic moment of the poem and its style very carefully, finding deliberate things to say about the form and the structure, and then examining the conclusion very deliberately for shift in intentions in the poet. So what you end up with then, if you were trying to memorize this in an acronym, is TMOCFS-SIC. TMOCFS-SIC. And that will give you a methodology that you can use to approach the paper. Now, this translates very neatly into a written structure that has a narrative introduction that you'll glean from number 2, the moments that you have defined the poem in terms of their narrative episodes. The themes is something that you will want to come back to, but if you've looked at the previous video and looked at, say, the various themes that I think are consistent across the text choices on this paper, that component should be relatively easy. And then what you're trying to do is build a thesis statement, perhaps from considering the significance of the title. Considering the significance of the title at the conclusion of your paragraph is a nice way to sort of build a thesis statement from this. And so, as you'll see from the poem that we're going to look at following this, Nighttime Fires, there will be a way to look at the uncertainties and the ambiguities in the title and building a thesis about the relationship alienation between the speaker and the father from that title. Then your first paragraph would be the opening and its distinctive stylistic features, how they contribute to its opening exemplification of the poet's intentions. Your following paragraphs would be the climactic moments and their distinctive stylistic features. Remember, you've got to be constantly defining these things in terms of the sense and their style, Then a paragraph, I would say, on the form structure combination in the poem. You want to deliberately talk about the form, the genre that the poem is written in, various discrete structural elements that contribute to the poet's purpose. That's the key thing you want to be thinking there, because you then have style and meaning, style and sense. And then 5, the conclusion style and the poet's shifting intention. So what are the distinctive features of the conclusion style? How do they give us the poet's shifting intentions? And then you've got a very nice 5-part structure to your essay that will ensure that you have a broad spread across parts of the poem and that you have dealt with the form and structure very consciously and deliberately.